What's up, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to Crossworld TCG. My name's Logan, and today we have a disgusting deck profile for you guys. Here with me is my buddy Josh.
How's it going, guys?
And we have his pretty spicy, pretty gross Android 13 Shenron list. What are your general thoughts about this deck, Josh?
I've been trying to make Android 13 release pretty much since he came out. The list is this is the best iteration of it yet, by far. It can recover well, and it has some problems getting through the early game, but once it gets through it, it's pretty disgusting.
Alright, and then for those of you guys out there that don't know, the main engine of this deck is the Dawn of Terror Android 13. This guy Union absorbs for a green into this big boy Unending Destruction Android 13. This guy is absolutely disgusting. It's one of the more overlooked cards out of set 3. His effect is, he's a 7-drop with double strike. When he comes into play, your opponent chooses one of their battle cards and they KO it. And then this is the biggest part of the effect, is when one of your opponent's battle cards is placed in the drop area by any of your skills other than this one, your opponent chooses one card from their hand and places it into the drop. So that's anything that's KOing a card by a skill, that's hitting it off of their hand, it's hitting it off their life with crit. All those effects will trigger his effect, including his own.
Yeah, the card is pretty good, and the deck is pretty much built to try and trigger him and get him out as fast as possible.
Alright, moving on. We're playing the Shenron list with the Shenron leader. This guy's pretty cool. It gives you some pretty interesting tools. Going over it, we have the 6 Dragon Balls, just your standard draw 1 cards, and we come to one of the most pivotal cards in the deck early on, and that is the 1-star ball. Why don't you tell us about this this amazing card, Josh?
This is probably the most utility you can get out of 1-star ball. Turn 1, you want to be getting it, and pretty much you want to be discarding Android 14 as much as possible. If not, Android 15 after that, kind of some of your other utility cards, but turn 1, you want to get Android 14. It's the easiest way to get Android 14 in there. In the late game, it's also effective if you Dragon Radar it back with the 17 on board, because you make them if they don't have any event cards, then they discard 2 instead of 1.
Seems pretty broken. And as you talked about earlier, we also have the Dragon Radar, which gives us a ton of utility in this deck, especially since you have that 1-star ball. You can add back any of your desired cards as well, and I guess we can pivot over to those right now. First off, we have Child's Wish. This card gains desire in all areas. Your leader is Shenron. Choose a battle card and you're dropped with 1500 or less and play it. And it has a power of, that has a 1500 or less power and energy cost of 3 or less. And then looking at some of the targets in this deck, some of the main ones that are here are, we have the Android 15 Just Saying Hi.
Yeah, he's super important. First off, he's one of your main combo pieces that you need, but I never put him back on the mulligan because seeing multiple of them is great because you just start Child Wishing them back. Usually on in the later games, if you can establish a 13, then you want to be resolving as many Child's Wishes as possible to either summon back Android 15 to make him start discarding, or the home moves Yamcha to make him start discarding. You have some other utility cards that you can bring back, but those are the 2 that you're going to be bringing back the most with that card.
Yeah, and then for those of you guys that don't know, Hone Moves Yamcha is a card that was kind of sleeper out of World Tournament. It's a card with crit, but it also allows you to choose a card from your life, add it to your hand, and your opponent chooses 1 card from their hand, puts it in the drop. So it's pretty cool. It's Self-Awakening card. Like Josh was saying, it functions, I guess, as the 6th copies of, or 5th and 6th copy of Android 15, right?
Yeah, the crit is really important also because it gives you 2 opportunities to hit cards out of their hand with Android 13, or forces them to combo out on just a 15k attack. It also lets you get down to 4 life, so that way you can get your Spirited Search Trunks to start adding cards back.
Yeah, and this card's pretty cool. It's one of the new cards out of set 5. It's activate main when your life is at 4 or less. Choose 1 green or black desire from your drop and add it back to your hand. His secondary effect is what? When you play this card, if your life, choose up to 2 from your deck, place them in the drop. I guess his first effect's not too relevant, huh? You're just
not in this deck. You want to be getting the Dragon Balls to your hand to be able to play them and draw. To put them in the drop. But I can see it like potentially being relevant against like Storm or something. If you just want to awaken fast, but nah, that would involve tapping out, which doesn't seem good.
Never want to tap out against Storm.
Yeah, so but he's like in the grind game, he's incredibly good, and he's green, so I don't feel bad charging him or anything if I draw him but don't want him.
Okay. And then this guy seems like he's pretty good at allowing you to string back-to-back desire turns.
Yeah, a lot of times you don't have, you could just set one up and just leave them there, especially if you realize that they're not playing Kami, and then you just keep bringing back desire cards every turn. So that way you let your, especially roll Peace, because that's the one you want to be hitting with your leader effect in the late game, to bring back either more of either the 13s.
Okay, for sure. And then moving on to World Peace, why don't you tell us a little bit about this crazy combo that you guys have, that you have
So,
once you hit 4 energy.
Yeah, so when you have 4 energy, hopefully you've been able to combo out of some tax or use some 1-star balls to get Android 15, Android 14, Android 13 in your drop. If you get those 3 cards in there and you have a 1-card Unending Destruction Android 13 in World Peace, so you activate your leader effect to play it for free. You play the 4-drop, it pops a card on their board. They get to choose which one, and they can't have barrier. But then you use the other 2, and you go into the Android 13 from deck. The biggest scare of this deck is drawing your Android 13s or lifing them, since you go through your deck so fast in the beginning.
Yeah, it seems like it. I mean, it's kind of like Cell Chain in that way. Like, you dread seeing that 7-drop big boy in your hand because he's just sitting there dead the whole time.
Yeah, it really messes up your game if you don't have any copies. But in reality, you only really need 1, because you bring it out turn 4, and then like third turn 4, turn 5, like they have to use their resources to get rid of it if they can. And then after that, you only have to go through 2 more turns before you can start World Peacing it back by.
Yeah, he's also just pretty difficult to deal with too, because he's so big.
Yeah. He's 30k. I don't swing with him ever. He doesn't have barriers, the issue. And one of the best new types of destruction is Gogeta, but that puts it at the bottom of the deck, so you can actually just roll Peace back your Android 13 again and keep doing it. Like, because anything underneath it goes into the drop. So if they Gogeta or do anything that puts it at the bottom of the deck, it's even better for you, because now you're popping 2 cards every single time again.
They basically just put the Gogeta on the board to die again. Really, like, it's so crazy. Even if like you hard remove that guy too, like if you have more 17 or 13s in deck, oh man, it's so frustrating to play against, because World Peace constantly looping back 13. It just feels like you'll never be able to get rid of him.
The other good cards in World Peace are the 2 Shenron targets, especially the 5-drop. Sometimes I get back the 4-drop because it gives things crit, which is important in the deck also, especially after you loop their hand. Giving random things crit just lets you, of course, swing and not give them cards, deny cards. And the 5-drop is on play, it draws 2, and you can give either something triple attack, or you can, the one I do most often is untap 4. So in turns where you do you have a bunch of Child's Wishes saved up, if you have an Android 13 still established and you have a bunch of wish cards because you haven't been using them in the game, a lot of times I will try and get rid of the Shenron out of my hand by either swinging with the Yamcha, comboing it or something, and then tapping out, and then using my leader effect to bring it back, untap 4 energy and draw 2 cards to keep going.
Seems busted. Been seeing a few lists just tech 1-ofs of this card too, just because it's so good in the late game with World Peace.
I don't think it's more than a 1-off in any list. I could see playing more of the 4-drop because of how important crit is in this deck and how well it synergizes with the deck.
Yeah, it seems
but definitely
good.
Not more of the 5-drop.
Yeah, this guy, just because he's the activate main, or he's when he's played instead of the activate main, which is the 4-drop.
Yeah,
that's a pretty big factor to it.
In this deck too, your big boss already has double strike, so triple strike isn't as impactful either.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on the list, you have a few negates in here. 3 full power energy. It's really the only negate you can play in this deck.
Yeah, that's the big thing. But it also it's good against Storm, and that's the hardest matchup. So I tried to put some things in there for it. In all reality, you're going to be getting rid of most of their cards, so their combo power isn't going to be very high in a lot of cases. So you don't need a lot of negates in this deck. And the other card that I play that's really defensive is the Iron Hammer of Justice Android 16, which has Revenge Blocker and restands itself, so you can do multiple blocks with it. And this card, since people already have to deal with your Android 13s all the time, a lot of times I'll put 2 of those out and then that. Or a Dawn of Terror 13, so that they out just the Android, the big guy. Then I just bring them back out the next turn for 1 energy. So they have to deal with that, but then they never can swing at me without just losing their battle card.
Yeah, it's so frustrating too. because like especially I was playing one of a blue decks against him, so I was dropping Gogeta on him, putting his 7 drops back at the bottom of the deck, and then still being forced to deal with this Iron Hammer. And I had no choice but to swing into it and like still lose my cards because on the follow-up turn, you just World Peace back Dawn of Terror, it pops a card, you pay another energy into Ending Destruction, and it pops a card, and I lose a card out of my hand.
Yeah, and then it's only 1 energy, so then I can actually try to switch back Iron Hammer for 2.
Oh man, it's just
yeah.
Once this thing gets going, it's a beast, dude. It's so frustrating to deal with.
Once you get past about turn 4 or 5, if you're set up, it's almost impossible to beat. It feels like.
Yeah. And then the last card in the deck, just 4 Dr. Giro, Evil Inventor.
So yeah, you need to your combo pieces. Essentially, is what it comes down to.
Yeah. Sorry, my bad.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
We've tinkered with the idea of playing the 2-drop at 2. Just so you can actually search the specific piece and you don't have to worry about whiffing at all. But I think just the 1 energy investment in it is a lot better.
Yeah, it seems pretty solid. Additional combo power, seeing your pieces. I always found that when I was playing the 2-drop Giro too, like sometimes I'd search for things that I didn't actually want, and then you draw into them, and then you wasted 2 energy. It just feels so bad playing that card.
Yeah, I think it might have more merits because I'm playing the 4-drop Shenron, so I can just revive it kind of thing.
Oh yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, but in all reality, you go through your deck so fast when you're if you haven't seen one of your pieces, unless you know there's like 2 or 3 of them in life, when you're scrying 3, you have a good chance of seeing that piece by the time you like really need to do it.
Oh, tell us about your favorite piece here, Unfeeling Destroyer Android 14.
This card is trash. You physically cannot play the other one because it literally does not work unless you have an Android leader. But this card does nothing for you. I have no problems drawing 15, but 14 for some reason hates me. I always like prize 2 of them and can never get to it. And like it's like the moment I get it, I discard it or charge it. Like maybe I get rid of 2 so that way I can get double 13 on board, but realistically, there's a lot of games that end with 2 of them charged in one, like in rotation. Like it's horrible. It's the worst card in this deck.
He's got that 110k too, so it's like really hard to get rid of him. Oh man.
Yeah, so like you're really hoping to 1-star ball. I mean, it is a natural double striker, I guess. And that's like I have actually World Peace that backed when they're at 2 life and no cards in hand. Like I think I did it once around turn 6 when I only had 6 energy, so I couldn't bring back the big 7-drop to go for a game. But that's like,
it's good enough.
Oh, 1 in a million play.
Yeah, I remember. And getting the 2 7-drops out is not as much of an issue as it used to be. Like I remember the first iteration of this build that we kind of were tweaking around with back in set 3. The end goal was to get both 17s to loop the hand, but like this one, it seems just like the sheer amount of things you can put on the board because of all these Shenron cards.
Yeah, well, back then too, the best form of removal was Mass Saiyan, and Mass Saiyan didn't hit the 7-drop. So there wasn't a lot of removal if you didn't swing with your cards either.
Right, that's right. They would just sit on the board, and then you couldn't.
Yeah, there was lots of them just on the board. So getting out 2 of them was not totally unfeasible compared to this. That now it's like getting 2 of them out actually like it's still like a win. It's like a win con, but it's like a win more. If by the time you get 1 out and you start doing your other plays, their hand is already so low that to get a second 1 out is just like overkill.
Kicking them while they're down, basically.
Yeah. The other weird thing with this deck is that you're gonna be playing like if the other deck doesn't self-awaken, you're gonna be, or it's like not a wish leader. A lot of times you're not gonna be awakening them ever. You're gonna be playing with a massive advantage of being a 15 to a 10 leader until they have no hand, and then you're gonna start swinging at them. And by the time you're doing that, you're starting to give your guys triple attack and stuff.
Yeah, it's super frustrating. Like because we've been moving down the amount of self-awakening cards in the deck in this more current format because people have been swinging a lot, you've been taking a lot of hits, but now it's just like the Shenron decks don't feel like they have to swing at you at all because their leader doesn't gain advantage from swinging. But then playing against this too is
your leader can't swing.
That too, yeah, that too.
It's like there's no point to giving you cards hands until I can know I can get rid of those cards out of your hand right away, essentially. So like a lot of times the turn I go for it is I have all my energy open. I already have a 13 established, and I'm going to I have like a Child's Wish in my hand to Android 15 right away. or like a Home moves Yamcha, which gets rid so I can get rid of more cards and stuff. Like by the time I actually if I give it triple strike or triple attack, you better believe those whatever you draw is probably gonna be I'm gonna be doing my best to get out of your hand right away, anyways.
Speaking of which, what turn do you normally go for the kill with this deck? Because I know you do your main combo on turn 4.
I do my main combo on turn 4, and then it's usually when they have no cards in hand, or I can establish one of the 2 Shenrons to give it some bonuses stats, or I have the tools in my hand essentially. Just pretty much when they have no hand.
Which is all the time. This deck is basically a constant and endless hand loop. Get used to playing on 2 cards to 0 cards. It's so frustrating to play against. I think one of the more interesting cards that we got out of set 5 that might be a decent tech against this deck is that Yenma, King Yenma, that puts back 2 cards.
It can definitely hurt. You have to play differently around blue because there's certain threats that just don't exist in other decks, like Mafuba, the King Yenma. Against King Yenma, there's not much you can really do except hold on to an extra Android 14 and 15 and 13, I guess. But yeah, there's this if they don't see it at the right time, it's kind of useless. A lot of times I'm not discarding the second piece until right before I do my combo.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because I want to be I don't mind taking hits in the beginning, so it's I'm not gonna combo until I realize you're either tapped out attacking at me, or I'm about to make my play next turn or something. I want to keep my hand size up pretty much a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's hard too if you're the person playing the King Yenma too, because you need to be able to put something on the board to out that 7-drop and then immediately put those pieces back. Otherwise, it's coming back. There's no question about it. It's hitting the board again on the follow-up.
Yeah, it's only good in the first few turns if I don't play around it at all, or if I just didn't draw the pieces to do it again. But that almost never happens, to be honest. Most of the time I'm choosing to charge my extra Android 14. But if I know you're playing King Yenma, I just hold on to them and get rid of them.
Yeah, and then you can just 1-star ball it into the drop, make your opponent discard another card. Oh,
yeah.
Man.
I think Dragon Raider has definitely been one of the best cards in this deck to get extra uses of 1-star ball, especially after you established your 13. So a lot of times I'll get a 1-star ball and a Child's Wish, and it ends up being a discard 4 off of one starter.
Absurd.
Yeah.
And then you didn't even really neg either because the 1-star ball replaced itself. The Child's Wish brought back what you discarded. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, Dragon Raider is such a filthy card. Definitely worthy of that now $6 price point.
Oh man.
100% the best card out of set 5.
Yeah.
Also, moving on. How are some of the matchups that you have against some of the more competitive decks that we're seeing?
So like I said, Storm's a matchup that's really hard for this deck, but you do play some counters and full power energy, so they have to be scared swinging with Barlocks, and the Android 16 is a really good option to deal with it, or try to deal with it.
If you can get him there.
Yeah, you get multiple blocks, and it's again, they can't swing with 1-drops theoretically. Cell Chain is not too bad because you don't mind discarding your pieces. There's nothing that you really want to keep in your hand except for your desire cards, and since you're not awakening them at all, they're not going to be able to super combo you to put you less than 3. And the new Android 16, while we're just at it, and the mirror match, and the hand destruction mirror kind of thing, is too slow. He wants to do his play turn 4, and you do your play turn 4, but your play just does so much more damage to him. Against Hercule, it's a weird matchup because their hand size can explode so fast, but you can also just make them discard everything consistently. So unlike Cell Chain, which makes them discard a lot really fast, this deck instead is a little different because it's a constant discard. So they can explode back up, but even after they explode, you can make them discard so they're low again. Yeah. So they're always gonna have a few cards, but they're just not. The best combo that it's against is the Chunks of Suzuki, but if I just have the outs to get there, and the weird part about that deck again is that they just don't kill you very fast most of the time.
No, they don't. They're normally, I would imagine against a deck like this, they're playing for the kill turn with Demigra, but even that's a little too slow. And all of their early game starters really, I mean, Goku doesn't stop your 7-drop, and then the
deck's evolved in set 5. If they're playing the Gogeta, we went over that earlier.
That's right.
I think the Mexico list was playing Gogeta.
Oh, that's right.
And
yeah, with the
but
4
like,
double shots.
it's like the worst form of removal against this deck. That's just all it is. It's just like, yeah, it's just like the Hercule matchup it's not free, but it's definitely, I think it's favored at my edge in this one.
Yeah, and even if they get that Gogeta off on you, like,
yeah, and the Demigra is not even really scary.
No.
Like, first off, I play a ton of event cards, like, and there's not a ton of cards I want to keep in my hand either. Like, it's like I kind of have to make sure I get rid of, like, I can just super combo early so they can't steal that out of my hand and stuff. But like, I also don't care. I recur stuff from drop, so even when they get rid of my hand, since I can't get rid of my wish cards, I can just bring everything back and start like playing again.
Yeah, if you see any of your Dragon Radars or Spirited Trunks, a Child's Wish, anything, assuming you're already set up, like, you just right back into the game.
Yeah, if like, literally try to keep one Android 13 alive, and if you do that, you're like, your next turn, you usually explode off and and you can usually make them discard anywhere between like 6 to 8 cards.
Definitely. In your opinion, what do you think are some of the biggest problems that this deck faces?
Barrier is a really tough thing for this deck. Since you don't really swing, you can't really force like barrier blockers to activate until like you're trying to go for your kill turn. The best thing that you can do with that is to try and get the 4-drop Shenron on board and just keep giving you guys crit so you don't feel bad swinging. Essentially. Seems pretty good. Yeah, at the same time too, even with like barrier guys, a lot of times you can end up making them get rid of their cards. This is like through the Android 15 and Yamcha. Like, and Android 16 is also really good at dealing with barrier guys because they cannot swing either. So you guys kind of get the stalemate now that neither player can swing.
Yeah, I was playing my Lemon Lime Frieza deck against you, and I was putting like my Piccolos on the board and stuff, and it just I could not put pressure on because I had no hands. And then a lot of the barrier stuff is like a higher drop too.
Yeah. So it's like by the time you're getting your higher drop in, my engine's already going. So it's like once my engine's going, I'm usually playing at an advantage. The Shenron leader just gives you great utility and being able to like play so many different unique cards. Even though like I can't get rid of your barrier cards, if you can't get past my board, then it doesn't really matter. Yeah. Like it's like you can't get rid of my board, I can't get rid of your board, but eventually I'm gonna be able to out resource you because I'm playing from my drop or you're playing from your hand, which I've slowly whittled down.
And also the great thing is you can build up a board, and because your 7-drop is a 7-drop, your opponent can't just drop a Kami on you and completely reset your game state.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, the only thing you really care about is the 7-drop maintaining. Everything else, if it dies, it's almost better for you because you can bring it back and re-trigger their effects on drop, with the exception of the barrier blocker.
Yeah, definitely. This deck this deck is definitely sleeper for sure. Like,
yeah.
Oh, it's pretty gross, especially since I think most people don't know what half these cards do. Like,
yeah.
I think if you were to put an Android 15 just saying hi, or that 14 into your drop with that 1-star ball on turn 1, your opponent
wouldn't know it.
Have no idea what they're in store for.
Yeah. Even if they did, it's like they can play more aggressive, but since I don't mind my card, like getting rid of my cards, I don't mind it comboing out of early attacks either. So then they have to start like putting power behind their attacks, and if their deck actually can't do that, they're just getting their hand lower by themselves. So when I make my play, it's just more devastating.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So like in the advantage game, if it goes into any kind of grind, this deck has a really big advantage, and if it takes a deck type to beat this deck a lot of times.
Yeah, like we were talking about before. I think it's a little bit weak to aggro. Storm rushing you down pretty quick if you don't have the full power energy in hand at the beginning.
Yeah, you have to play around stuff, essentially. Against them too, you also want to just keep your Dragon Balls as much when in your mulligan to try to awaken as fast as possible as well.
Being a 15 lead with 7 life left is pretty good.
Yeah, so it's like that's like what you're hoping for. So you just get all your Dragon Balls from the deck because they're gonna be swinging at you. You're gonna have to take a few hits usually, and hope you draw your last Dragon Ball so you don't have to search it and hurt yourself.
All right, very cool. Do you have any finishing thoughts before we wrap up here?
The deck is kind of hard to pilot at times. Sometimes it displays itself. Knowing what to combo out of, knowing when to put your guys in drop, and figuring out which guy you want to Child's Wish back are all really important. Just know it's a protect the castle type of deck. and don't play it too much because your friends will start hating you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I've been playing this deck a lot just to test it out and stuff, and it's like
not fun.
People started like not wanting to play against me. They're just like, okay, I'll play something else. I just want to play.
All right, for sure. All right, well, thank you very much for the list, Josh. It's been a pleasure and a pain seeing this disgusting deck do so well, and I don't know how else to describe it besides disgusting. It's like one of the most frustrating decks to play against because you're not fully prepared for it. But again, this is
hard.
Oh, sorry.
It's hard to play around. Like it really is.
Yeah. Again, this has been Logan here with Crossworld TCG. If you guys haven't subscribed already, hit that button. Leave a like, leave a comment. Tell us what you guys think. Try this out at locals and tell us how many friends you lose. Until next time, guys.